Utilities are a huge issue with us on projects.
Okay, good morning. We are in session for our hearing for the petition to abandon an alley in Clinton Township. We have Cameron Keaton, our county engineer, here with us for this hearing that we're having. Seeing no other members from Clinton Township or the public in general. Cheryl Swain, the news is here. We open up the hearing for anyone that has anything to say, and Cameron, if you have any input that you could give to us at this point. And for those who may be watching, it's an alley, unnamed alley, that's in the Fairview subsection, as platted in plat book 2, page 142, which we're looking at vacating part of the road so that it will be divided up and totally be abandoned, and there'll be 2 lots, 3 lots that would be affected by it. That's the purpose of our hearing this morning. And we went out on Tuesday to view the area. Cameron went into more of a detailed discussion with Jeremy Waite, who was one of the residents beside that, and we are having people sign in the petition sheets or the hearing sheet to notice who all is here. And when Cameron's done there, we'll have him to give us some input. And Barry, you want to say anything?
Yeah, I got a personal phone call from Mr. Waite yesterday. He was concerned that he had to be at this meeting, and I talked to Jason, and this is just a preliminary, no decisions are being made at this point, so I informed him of that. So I think he's good with what's going on here.
Yeah, good. As Bill mentioned, we viewed the site on Tuesday. It's obviously an alley that's not improved. Doesn't appear to be had been improved anywhere in since it's been in place back there. Overall, from the standpoint of the vacation of the alley, which I think is what we're really dealing with here, is we've been requested by the township trustees. Is that right, Jason?
That's correct.
To vacate the alley. Looking at the alley area and how it's being used now currently, I didn't see any existing utilities in the area. That seemed to be an issue. So I wouldn't have any issues with the alley being vacated, as far as that goes. But once it is vacated, I think it's gonna be, kind of on the property owners to determine exactly where those lines are at. And so if there's a survey that needs to take place or something to that effect, if there's any encroachments on each other's property, because the alley will be split down the middle. 6.5 feet goes each way with each one of the property owners. But as far as the use of the alley and future use of it, I don't see an issue with vacating at this point in time. So.
We did have a discussion about whether even more of the alley should be vacated, but the portion we're talking about is the portion that the Clinton Township trustees requested. If they want to vacate the other portion of the alley, that would be upon them to come back and make that request. I believe Jason, we have Chip working on some easements in the area too.
Correct.
And we'll wait.
3 easements.
So we'll wait until we hear back from his office. So you'll give us a written report on your assessment?
I'll give you a written recommendation from my office, yeah.
For clarity, we're only talking about the part, not just half of that alley, pretty much, not the
It's
whole
those
alley.
2 parcels that.
Yeah, the 2
we
land.
were out there from Clinton Township,
Okay.
just for
Thank
waiting
you.
property and along the side and at this point, and then in the past, it's not uncommon that the trustees may come back later and ask for
The rest
of it.
Yeah.
And then we would do the same process that we did this time to go back out there, look at it, and then you could vacate those if they choose they want to have that done in the future.
And Cameron, how would we impact, would this be part of the trail and putting a fence there? Is that part of this request at all? Or is
No.
that a totally separate
That's a
matter?
totally separate issue,
Okay.
yeah.
And that's the piece, Trenda, that Chip's working on those 3 easements for the 3 property owners. cause that property's kind of tangled down there. There's like 3 or 4 different people that own that.
Yeah.
So we're working on easements for all three of those.
And I did get a copy of the surveys that have been completed up in that area. Survey has not been completed on the alley itself. Surveys have been done on the portion of the old vacated roadways that were out there. I think it's
Yeah.
Pennsylvania.
Good.
There are actually 2 roadways out there. I think one of them was 50 feet wide, another one was 28 feet wide. So surveys have been completed on those. They're adjacent to this alley, but the alley has not really been surveyed. So in talking to Jeremy, no offense to Jeremy, but with the pins that we're looking at and looking at these surveys, he doesn't have a good grasp of exactly where all the property lines are at, where they run out there. Because what he thought was maybe the northern edge of the alley actually isn't necessarily the northern edge of the alley out there based off the pins that I'm seeing out there.
So when you were doing that review, the Pennsylvania street alley. Did it indicate when that was vacated, and did that go all the way over to where our soil and water?
It did say.
Drive is?
No, it didn't go all the way over soil and water. There was another piece of roadway. I don't know if I have the actual plats. And it is indicated, I think, in the, it's got a parcel number. It's on the auditor's website, I think, when that
Okay.
section was vacated, when that went through.
So
But-
are the buildings on the alley or are they on the man's property?
I can't tell you that for sure.
You wouldn't be able to tell that.
I don't know. But I guess when I look at just that area behind the property, what would be the alley area, the 13 feet. I don't see a reason to keep it as a dedicated alley. I don't think any of the public's gonna use that for anything in the near future. There's no utilities out there. So I don't have a problem vacating it, but that's what I said. Once we vacate it, it's gonna be up to them to try and sort out who owns what and who's encroaching on who out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the township hasn't been maintaining it, so
Right.
I don't think they've been maintaining the other part of it either.
There's pieces of tree in there that big.
Yeah. So to kind of answer your question, there were 2 roadways that come in there. There's a piece of that old Pennsylvania roadway that goes back in there. I think it's about 208 feet from where we were standing at the beginning of Jeremy's driveway there.
Mhm.
You go back about 208 feet, or actually it's a little more than that. It's probably 250 feet. And that's where the 50-foot section ends. And then it goes down to a section of roadway that's 28 feet wide. So
Okay.
like Jason alluded, if you look at the maps on this, it's quite the cluster back in there. Yeah.
And the alley's 13 feet, so that's why you're saying this.
This alley's 13. There's other alleys in the same plat that are 15. So you have to pay attention to what's recorded on these plats. And even though these plats are from 1905, that's what it is. That's what it was platted at that point in time. So
Any other things we need to discuss during the hearing? So that concludes our hearing. At a future date, we will act upon your recommendations that you will be sharing with us. Thank you, Cameron.
yeah,
For coming in.
very good. Yeah.
Thanks, Cameron.
You bring your skis.
I wish that's where I was at today.
I dressed for it, didn't change notification.
Very good.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Hey, Jason. Yeah, come on in.
Good.
Oh,
Morning, I've got this, Bill, I went ahead and had Scott
Come
and
down.
Brian move up, cause I knew that hearing wasn't gonna take very long today,
Okay,
so.
great. Yes. So now we have Brenda and Scott from Job and Family Services with us.
Good morning.
Because you're on TV. This is a live Memorex. We
We
appreciate
were
you.
dating ourselves with a Memorex reference, but I get it, so. Hello, I understand, well, based on our last visit, you had some questions about the adoption subsidies, so we have some details about that. And of course, are willing and able to answer any questions that you might have. I asked Brenda to come down this morning to give you the high profile view of our budget and our fiscal properties. Just to give you some of that 3 to 5 minute elevator speech about how we're funded and how that goes and the way we're structured and those different types of things. You're familiar, Bill, Jason familiar, but our new friends, maybe not so much. So Brenda, I'll hand it off to you and let you go forward with that.
Okay, so I'll try to condense this. It's all very lengthy and a complex process, but JFS administration, organization is basically an umbrella. So we cover child support, child protective services, public assistance, and workforce development in Knox County. We are quadruple combined, which is a state designation because we cover all of those areas. In total, we have approximately 76 employees, and that's a full-time equivalent, typically around 72 and a half employees. 54 of those are bargaining employees. Funding wise, JFS receives funding, federal funding, state funding, county funding. We are responsible for program management, program development. We're responsible for reporting on all of the programs, all of the funding and audits and related audits for those fundings and programs. And the compliance. We have approximately right now 66 separate funding streams that we deal with. Each funding stream has its own independent rules, compliance, what we can spend the money on, what programs we can operate out of that funding. It is all separate according to federal and state regulations. We close and balance our funding at least 5 times per year across the state fiscal, federal, fiscal year and the county calendar year. So we have to keep all of those straight within the, funds, and some of the funds have a split funding of one of them's federal and one of them state, so those are on separate calendars. And we manage those. The allocation management, we operate on a reimbursement process, so we pay everything initially up front, and then we submit to draw back down funds out of those 66 funding streams. And we have to submit that, and they will reimburse us for that. We don't go over our allocation. If we go over our allocations, then those convert to essentially, because we're not being reimbursed, those are local costs then. So that's always the goal. We can get funding. It's not additional funding, but we can trade funding with other counties if we're short in a fund. We have the RMS system that we use to draw down for program funding and for also employee salaries. That's called random moment sample, and it's literally a random moment. The employee will get an email and they have to say what they're doing at that specific moment. And then based on whichever funding stream they're working in, then we can draw down money anywhere from usually around $1,500 up to $5,000 for that. And that is all regulated and audited as well. So we also, some of our funding, like Medicaid, food stamps, that's pass through. So we basically do a budget request and we need additional funds for that. And to work with that, our 2024 and 2025, well, the 2025 projections, where our expenses are around 15.5 million is where we're at, and our revenue is just under 15 million. And we will use we have opportunities for incentives through our staff, and our staff are great, and our administrators are great at trying to secure those incentives through our programs if they're able to, and we'll use those to make up shortfalls. We'll trade with other counties to get funding coverage, and we'll do some post-allocated adjustments, although it's very strict on when we can move money that way, but we were able to do that too. In 2024, the county contributions for mandated share was 93,000. And CPS placement cost that the county contributed to was about 1 million to cover for Children Protective Services. The CPS levy brought in 1,957,000. And that's after the fees that are assessed by the agencies that manage it for us.
So how much was that? 1 million, what?
It brought in 2,09,423, and then we received 1,957,054.99.
Thank you. Now, is that the levy money? Or is it?
That's
Yeah.
just the levy money divided out.
Okay,
Yeah.
and I was thinking you also said that that's about 2.5 million of expense, so did I misunderstand that?
2.5 million of expense.
For foster care,
Well, I'm looking at the money that the levy brings in and how much we're expending.
Oh, yeah, that's not the only money. We have federal funds and ESA funds and other funds that are included within that 66 streaming fund that we can expend on children's services that we
Okay.
do, yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. So we're good.
And then that, yeah, okay, so, okay, and then you talk about other counties, do they have to be adjacent counties?
To,
Borrow from.
Moving
No.
monies around. Okay.
we can, anywhere in the state that we can reach out to. Generally, we'll send out an email or something within our group first, or the directors will talk. To say what they need or what they have, and then the state has an overall redistribution process. If you were not able to connect with the county and personally get some funds traded or transferred, then the state does a redistribution about every quarter where you can tell them where your shortfalls are, and other counties will contribute, and then it goes into a pot and they'll re-spread that back out.
When you speak of that, when they allocate these funds, do they look at your previous year to reallocate, or is it a start over? And the reason I ask that, if you run short, does the previous year the allocation pick up or not?
No, usually. It's different, so FCFC's under us, FCFC money typically rolls on and they can use it into the next year. Our money has an end date and a liquidation date. So we have to have all of the invoices, all of the spending done by the end date, and all the invoices have to be paid out by the liquidation date. So the majority and 99.9% of our funds will never roll over into
Never
the
roll
next
over,
year,
okay.
yeah. So, and then to your other point, we absolutely would want to spend
All the money
the money that
Yeah.
we can, or we could,
get shorted next year?
exactly.
That's what I was asking.
And we could get shorted anyway, depending on the
Right.
budget and how things are determined. But we want that money, and we want that money to come back to
Well,
our
absolutely,
community.
that's why I asked, so in theory,
Mhm.
you want to spend every dime you get from them, so
Yes.
that the odds are they try not to take from you the
Yeah.
following year.
Yeah, and then since I've been here working with Scott in the last 3 years, we've been able to increase the TANF spending, the programs. Brandy's put in some programs, PA, we've kicked off the back to school program and kind of expanded it. And we've been able to increase that spending to drain our
Yeah.
TANF fund. And, you know, other people are asking if we can share, how that can share this, share that.
right, but we accept whenever
Yes.
we can.
And we help anyone that we can, because
Yeah.
we would rather it go out
Right,
and
And
come
back
back
to the
and,
state.
yeah.
Scott, I believe the resolution that the commissioners adopt every year in our reorganization meeting authorizes you to do those transfers.
Correct.
Commissioners, if you remember on
Yeah.
our first session, we authorized him to do that throughout the year. By resolution, you did that,
Yeah,
and that lets him go after those trade funds as needed.
that's helpful because I have to upload that into our system and able to make the transfers come and go, so. An example of the incentives that Brenda referenced as well, those are typically related to performance. So for example, in children's services, there's a 95% threshold to have face-to-face contact with children in care. And if we reach that or achieve it, we typically get a financial incentive
Bonus.
back from the state. If we're on board with the percentage, so we do our best to try to meet those goals and reach the financial rewards that accompany that, just to fill that gap in between the budget and where we might be a little bit short.
Are those annual or quarterly goals that they?
They're overall it's annually, but quarterly we review and
Review.
measure. And actually I do the visitation, we do that monthly. I have a conversation with the social services administrator about how we can do a little bit better. And maybe there's glitches in the system that don't entirely capture our visits the way that they actually occurred. And so we try to work those bugs out with the state. So any questions about the budget or any of those details?
We talked about state funding. Has the state, do they need to put more money in the pot to help us out?
Always.
The answer is never no.
And that's where some of the committees I'm involved with Public Children's Services Association, the Ohio Job and Family Service Directors Association. Those are our voices at the legislative level to prioritize things that we need and to echo some of the financial burdens that we're struggling with. And can there be some advocacy with the congressmen and women and senators to advocate for certain priorities and from a financial perspective, specifically related to the work that we do at Job and Family Services.
I know that there's been conversations the last several months from other counties talking about the childcare where they don't have enough money because they're having to put children in high risk scenarios to be able to deal with that. I know that we have some of that going on. We've talked in the past about how the drug scenario has kind of skyrocketed that since 2015. Could you talk a little bit more about what we face here in Knox County on finding appropriate places for children that are taken out of their homes?
Sure. So when kids are placed in care, we're always looking for relatives first. And when that can't occur, they'll be placed in an alternative level of care, whether that's a foster home or a facility, something like that. The two biggest things that relatives can talk to us about in terms of needs are transportation and childcare. So we try to find providers. We license our own. As you may recall, years ago, the state made childcare licensure a little bit more stringent, a little more structured. And what they found was that folks in communities like ours and really throughout the state were saying, well, I'm just gonna put my kid over here with my neighbor. And my neighbor, even though they're not a licensed childcare provider, they don't have to go through the hoops of having to get all the licensing hours and the potential penalties should they not follow whatever the rules are. Now, the state since relaxed on those a little bit, so I think that's helped in terms of getting more providers back into that formal fold. But we do provide financial relief to certain families for childcare expenses when that can occur. The biggest problem is finding providers and people that will pass a background check. You know, the stakes are higher when kids are in our care. Those are our decisions. We have to sanction those placements. And when folks have some questionable backgrounds, have made maybe some poor decisions, we have to vet that and have a conversation about whether or not that's the best place for our kids. But that's where we struggle, is finding people. We hear people saying, yes, I want to do that. Yes, I want to do that. Well, I don't really want to be licensed. I don't really want the state in my life. Don't really want you in our life, but so we try to strike a balance and have something on a level where, they're comfortable and we're comfortable with the child being in a safe environment. You've got work schedules where, I get off at 2, the kids get home from school at 3, and then there's a 4-hour gap, all those kinds of things we have to juggle and try to figure out a common bond. So maybe Aunt Sarah comes over from 3 to 5, and then Uncle Charlie comes over until I get home from work, things like that.
And so when a child is adopted, we still provide funding to help out that family. Correct?
If they ask for it, the adoption subsidy is voluntary and it gets revisited every year. So if they ask and we negotiate a monthly amount, they have the capacity after a year to renegotiate their amount. Kids get older, they have different needs and we understand that. But there are folks that adopt children, relatives included, and they say, we're done, it's been a great run, we love you, JFS, but we don't want to see you anymore. We can take care of it. And those are good outcomes too.
Yeah, good.
But this hasn't happened recently, but I've been involved in negotiations in the past where, you know, it almost feels like you're negotiating, you know, a thing instead of a human being. And that's where, you know, we have to be a little bit delicate in terms of, well, this kid's been in your home, her entire life. She's 3 years old now. Or are we really gonna come down to $200 a month to see, you know, if that's the difference? So we try to maneuver that the best we can. There are times and occasions where the state comes in and plays the mediator in those discussions. So we've since developed, I think, a more deliberate approach to family members and potential adoptive parents where we say, you know, this is the process. The goal is always reunification, but if we get to the end and this is the permanency option for the child, this is where we want things to be most comfortable and most structured. And then that's, I think, got us some advantages in terms of we haven't had these quarrels over the amount.
I hear you talk about adoption. Is there a fostering program also up there or not?
Yeah, we do foster care and adoption licensing upstairs in our foster care unit. There's 2 dedicated workers to that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I know a couple years ago, we were over 100.
Yeah,
Children.
more than that, yeah.
Yeah.
We're about 60 now.
Yeah, which is great, because I
Yeah.
know and we spend, what, about 250,000 a month?
Yeah, I think last year was 2.7, 2.8 million in total costs. And Brenda did a breakdown. That was just the foster facilities. Our county foster homes, which we've got about 30 now, we spend $162,000, $122. And then foster
And
care,
that's per month. At 162,000.
That was for 24.
That
That
was-
was for 24,
yeah,
okay,
that's for
for the whole year.
for the whole year. And then foster care expenses, and that includes childcare, mileage, clothing vouchers. That was $223,821.97. And then our adoption subsidies was $117,487.
So about 500,000.
Yeah, around, yeah.
Yeah.
So the adoption subsidies are money well spent, and it's, you know, it's our least of the expenses. And we had 21 kids adopted last year, which is almost unheard of in Knox County. It's so high, and we had 4 last year. So 21 and 23 and 4 last year.
And that's where Brenda hit on that, and that's where, 2-3 years ago, we started funding $1 million from the general fund to children's services to cover these monthly expenditures of what you mentioned is whatever you said, 2.8.
7, yeah, we're doing our,
Levy's not keeping up with.
no, and we're doing our very best on our end to cut expenses where we can, not that we have control of that, but if we can build more that's a better rate. It keeps kids in our community, it keeps kids in their schools and their friendships and in their sports teams. It's those kids that are in that higher level of care in the residential facilities where those are our biggest spenders.
The 60, that is the people in the children foster care or total?
Total, yeah. How about half of those are placed with Ken? And then the others are between foster care, either our homes or a therapeutic home like the Village Network, or in a facility.
But you do need more foster care parents.
We always need more foster care parents.
And how long is the training to do that?
Ooh, I want to say it's about 6 months. It depends. You know, you can do it online or, you know, there are some in-person classes, but I would say 6 months to a year before you finally get your licensure. So it's a process. But we walk you through it all along the way, and anybody that's interested, certainly send them my way, or, I can give you some information about the two that are in that department directly, to get you some regular contact information. And if you have anybody in mind, please send them our way.
It's heart-wrenching to see children in distress and hurt. We did a spelling bee last night. It's hard to see them lose a spelling bee match, right?
Yeah,
Abuse or, if you could think of two things that would change everything that you said, if I could just get this done, this would change everything for these kids, what would it be?
well, two things I would change for these kids. One, I think would be, more preventative services
I was
that's
gonna ask
available.
that. That's why I wanna know what we're doing for prevention.
We're very prevention oriented. The problem is lack of resources, waiting lists, transportation and childcares. You can also throw that in there. So we would like to be able to, when candidly, when families reach us in social services, they've already arrived at crisis. So we're trying to clean up, the police on the scene and all those other horrible things. And I try not to sensationalize things just because it's hard for people that don't understand the work like you all do to digest a situation where we had the other day where police were on the scene, they were arresting the mother, 2 and a 3-year-old in the home. The 2-year-old tested positive for methamphetamine, and we brought those kids back to the hospital, and the 2-year-old naturally was having some reactions to what had happened. And so we took the kid to the hospital. They transferred the kid to Nationwide for further evaluation. Both the children now are okay. They're with grandparents. So I guess the second remedy would be we always know that people are gonna be challenged, whether it's by lack of education, poverty, chemical dependency, family violence, what have you. But, along with the prevention, we would like to be able to see maybe a lesser degree of the trauma that these kids are exposed to, that our staff, quite frankly, are exposed to. It's a difficult job when you're 23, 24 years old. Maybe you have kids of your own, maybe you don't, but how do you relate to somebody that's, in their 30s or 40s and they have this drug problem and, they can't seem to do anything other than be able to buy and use drugs and everything else. So there's moral compasses involved, there's heartache involved, there's, things that we do internally to try to rally around the staff and get them to rally around the families in terms of, this is a horrible event that's happened. How do we heal from that? Those are the two biggest things off the top of my head. I could list you a bunch.
Sure. The prevention, what would you see specifically could help with prevention?
Well, I think we're really engaged with the other professionals in our community related specifically to mental health and chemical dependency. So growing that that awareness and that access, I think, is something that we talk about on a regular basis. And we want to have more places for people to go and know it's like mom, so that the mother, she was arrested in the example that I gave about the other day. And she said, well, I want to go into detox right now. There was nowhere for her to go. So with people that are chemical abusers, especially, you have to hit on those moments when they're saying, yes, I'll go. If you wait till tomorrow, we've lost her until the next event happens. So those are the kinds of things that I talk about with my relative peers in the community and beyond, and our neighbors in Licking and Richland. We try to collaborate there. Housing isn't so much an issue, but I feel like it's trending that way. So access to that would be, you could add that as a 2A or 2B.
Is there a collaboration, parenting classes and faith-based organizations in the community?
Absolutely, they specialize in providing support, not just chemical dependency, but family violence and those different types of obstacles that our families engage in. Some folks aren't inclined to go the faith-based route, but some of the faith-based providers that we have soften the approach, and we ask you to do this, we ask you to do that, you don't have to be this to be eligible for our programming, and so that helps, and we try to support those dispositions as well.
Did I understand you correctly? We don't have a detox facility in the county?
We do, the access, the issue is access, and sometimes it also depends on if you're a male or a female and how old you are, and if you have kids. The problems with, a challenge with detox is there aren't very many providers that I know of that you can take your kids and
Gotcha.
detox in that facility, so the kids are coming somewhere else either way.
I don't know if you'd want your child to go through detox with you.
Well, you probably wouldn't, but it does happen. You think about, if you get to that point, if you're a mom or a dad, that's the lowest you can be. You've had really everything taken away from you, and then to include your kids in that, it's a new level of rock bottom, but sometimes it's necessary. It's the last resort, but sometimes we have to do that. But so like and especially at like 2 AM, and mom's saying, okay, yeah, I'll go. Well, somebody might answer the phone and somebody might not. And again, it depends on, is she between 18 and 25, and it just gets complicated. So we want something that's more available to all the folks that we serve.
I was gonna say, the age thing seems to be an oddity for me. But
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know what all the rationale is on those, and maybe it's related to funding or something like that. I'm not entirely sure, but we want it for everybody, not just a particular group.
We do have, some of our TANF funding is dedicated toward prevention through our PRC services. And those programs provide help to individuals with housing. They have to be working, they have to have a child in the home, and they can be potentially eligible for housing assistance, auto repair, something related to their job if they need uniforms or something of that, something to keep them working and something to support them in what they're doing to stay out there. And Children's Services does have some of their own programming that we run through our TANF funding as well, that helps with, on the prevention side, just what Scott was speaking about, to prevent them from coming into the system.
And we talked about 60 kids, but your caseload is a lot larger than that. How many are currently in cases that you manage?
As you would imagine, it differs from day to day. So we've got 6 ongoing workers, and they carry between 10 and 15 families apiece.
Okay.
So that could be a mom and 1 kid, it could be a mom, 5 kids. So it depends. We like to have, those are kids that are in the home, we call those protective cases, so we like those especially. Sometimes they're court involved, to just have a little legal leverage in terms of encouraging the parents to participate in whatever service. But sometimes they're voluntary, where there's no court involved, the kids are in the home, and we're working best we can to give mom and or dad or grandma and grandpa, aunt and uncle best tools available so that they can independently keep these kids safe.
So it'd be several hundreds.
Depending on the day, yeah.
And most of the issues, are they drug related?
75% of the families that come in contact with us are somewhere related to drug use.
So there seems to be a point that we need to really focus in on.
Right. And we work really collaboratively with law enforcement, and they give us the latest in terms of trends. I think I mentioned the last time we talked that methamphetamine was a particular challenge in our community. But we see a little bit of everything. Cocaine comes back every once in a while, The trend, and the drug screens that we do, we pick up on trends and patterns from those in terms of what people are testing positive for, and so on and so forth. So we try to be mindful of that on a regular basis.
So when you say drug screens, do you have the people go to the hospital for that screening? How's the screening done?
No, our caseworkers are trained in social services to do that, and so they do the swab and put it
Okay.
in the envelope and mail it off. Matter of fact, this isn't drug related, but in child support, we're gonna start doing the paternity testing here in our offices versus having them go to an off-site location and doing that. So when we've got them here and they're engaged, we can go ahead and author the test and then send it out FedEx and get the results within a day or two.
Is that blood or is that a swab?
Swab, saliva.
And it's part of the program to try to get them into work or jobs so that they're not trying to.
Absolutely.
Lab or to do those type of.
Yeah, I
things.
think we referenced last time, years ago, it was, with the posture at the state level is, if you didn't pay child support, we were gonna arrest you, or we were gonna take your driver's license away. Well, how am I supposed to pay child support if I can't work and I'm in jail? So they saw that wasn't the best approach, and we worked with the sheriff's office to get folks engaged via employment through our Seek Work programming, and we have other finance or employment resources that we provide to the obligors and so on and so forth.
Yeah, and you have Opportunity Knox as one of those.
Yeah, we always try to send them that way if that's the appropriate type of avenue to engage in.
And I know Opportunity Knox provides the commissioners with a list of job openings every Friday. So if people are looking for work, Opportunity Knox is a perfect place for them.
It's very well advertised, yes.
So there are jobs, just getting people connected with those jobs and giving them hope
Yes,
to try to change
Yeah.
it, being probably very tough on drugs,
There's-
drug dealers and drug.
well, I think marijuana's been relaxed in terms of an employer disqualification. The others, yeah, there's some prohibitive types of drugs on that list, but there really shouldn't be any reason unless, there's maybe an unidentified disability or something like that, that people shouldn't be working every day. There's plenty of employment opportunities here. We want to keep them here. But if maybe they're on some of the surrounding edges of the border of the county, they can find something in Licking, but we always try to keep them in Knox County.
We have dedicated TANF funding for those as well, education for jobs and to be able to get licensing for jobs, and they're able to assist with that out there as well.
Scott, while you're here,
Mhm.
we have on the agenda today, here later on, to appoint.
Oh, Melissa?
Yeah, Melissa, to reappoint her as the regional representative to the Ohio Children's Trust Regional Council. You want to explain to the commissioners what that is, so when they appoint her, they have understanding of that?
Yeah, so the FCFC Family and Children First Council, Melissa, I think we share a contract with Knox Public Health in terms of funding that position. But Melissa is the go-between, so the council is comprised of a number of community stakeholders and professionals that have an influence on whether it's mental health, job and family services, chemical dependency, those different types of representatives, education and law enforcement and so on. And so when we identify families that qualify for services from FCFC, Melissa is the one that engages them out in the community and connects them to the services and develops relationships and monitors their progress and so on and so forth. So she's been doing that the last, I'm gonna say 2 or 3 years. And since my time here, I've really seen FCFC flourish with the model that we're using there because she's consistent. She comes from a background, I think she was with one of that chemical dependency.
Okay, Senator.
Now, Freedom Center. I think she came from Freedom Center, so.
you want to define the you were using initials in there that,
Family and Children First Council, did I not say, I'm sorry if I
well,
didn't say
yeah,
that.
but there's people watching, so. I
Right.
mean, that would.
FCFC Family and Children First Council.
Brenda, that's a committee you
Right.
will serve on. this
Yes.
year.
Right. So whenever you're ready, just let me know and we'll introduce you to that and
Right.
make sure that you're up to speed on, in terms of what the expectations are and all those
I would
different
very
things.
much like that.
Great, great. All right, anything else for us?
Thank you very much.
Thank you for
Thank
your
you.
time,
Thank you
appreciate
for
it.
the hard work that you do
Very
for
welcome,
children, for families. The
Thank
most
you.
important thing in our community, really.
appreciate your
Thank
support.
you. Thank you.
Thank you, Brendan.
Good week.
Scott.
Thanks.
Hey, we're
Hey,
gonna,
you stay out of the snow.
Yeah, let me just send you a text. I think we'll be,
when you're done,
yeah, I'll just
Yeah.
send you a text.
We'll come back down to your office.
If Brian's out there, you want to send him in?
Available, so he just said texting when we're.
Perfect. Great, thank you so much.
Good morning.
Good morning, Ryan.
How are you?
Brian Biggerstaff with Knox County Dog Shelter. We welcome you.
Well, thank you.
So you're,
Happy to
you're
be
on
here.
TV, so make sure you smile and have your makeup all done.
Yeah, definitely.
Did you bring a dog to adopt?
I don't have one with me, but I can bring one. So the monthly report for December 2024, we had a total of 35 dogs enter the shelter. 18 were owner surrenders, 13 were stray dogs, 2 were seized or custody dogs, and 2 were returned adoptions. We had a total of 43 dogs leave the shelter in December. 24 were adoptions, 8 were euthanasias, 10 were returned to their owner, and 1 was sent to a rescue. It should be noted that 7 of the 8 dogs euthanized in December were at the owner's request. 6 of those 7 were due to the dogs being aggressive or having a bite history, and 1 of those 7 were for medical reasons. And the shelter euthanized 1 dog after a staff member was bitten. And then as of Wednesday, January 15th, 2025, there was 31 dogs at the shelter. Out of those 31 dogs, 25 are available for adoption. 2 dogs are on a 3-day stray hold, and 4 of those dogs are leaving for a rescue today. There are a total of 4 dogs on the adoption floor that have been at the shelter for over 60 days. And there were a total of 4 citations issued in the month of December. Deputy Brian Weiser issued 1 citation for failure to confine. Deputy Tyler Moore issued 2 citations for failure to confine, and I issued 1 citation for failure to confine.
And Brian, can you, I know we've talked this week about the incident you had. Can you speak to the commissioners a little bit about just where that, what happened there and?
Yeah, so at the beginning of this week, we were sent a video of some animal cruelty that happened in town. And we were able to speak to the individual that sent that video to us and get a warrant for an arrest and a seizure. And we went and executed that. Deputy Tyler Moore, myself, and Mount Vernon Police Department, and had the individual arrested and took the 2 dogs back to the shelter. And so that is the situation that we had this week.
So those 2 dogs then will be held until a court case, or how's
So,
the process?
We actually were able to get those dogs surrendered to the shelter. So the individual that owned the dogs signed them over to the shelter.
Okay.
And I believe that one of those dogs has already been adopted and is going to be leaving next week. So.
That's probably not the typical thing where you get a video and. have to
No,
go
but
out.
this one happened pretty fast. I think a lot of it was probably because of how disturbing the video was. We were able to move quickly and get that taken care of thanks to the law director and the prosecutor.
It's great, good to know. I
They
mean, it's good to
typically-
know that it's got taken care of, not good to know that it happened.
Yeah.
What typically would be the fine or the repercussions of someone doing something like that? What would they end up?
I mean, this individual was definitely looking at jail time. How long that is going to be up to the judge, but it could be anywhere from 10 days to 30 days or more. Depending.
And then would that person be banned to be able to own dogs from there?
That would all be up to the judge's discretion. How long that would be, if it would be a lifetime ban on it, owning a companion animal, or a certain amount of years.
And Brian, you can speak this, but typically if we would seize the dogs in a case, we would have to hold those pending the case. But if they would sign them over like they did, then we can put them up for adoption or rescue right away.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then since we've done the renovation out the dog shelter, and we don't need to do any more renovations, we're good for a while.
Not at this time, no.
And what's the traffic flow of people coming into the shelter? Is that a constant, or is it just really hit and miss?
I think it just depends. I know that this time of year, we're pretty busy with foot traffic, with people coming into the shelter to get dog licenses. And then depending on the day of the week, we could have more people on the weekend coming to look to adopt a dog. So, but yeah, I would say right now, this is our busier time of the year with people coming to the shelter to get dog licenses renewed.
So, yeah, you're not open to the public in the morning until 10 o'clock?
Correct.
So
yes.
your hours Monday through Friday are consistent?
Yeah, Monday through Saturday, so we're open at 10 a.m. to the public through 4 p.m.
Even on Saturday?
Even on Saturday.
And I know you have some service groups that help out, and I know this helps with food and other things, volunteers walking.
Yeah,
Adoption.
most of the food that is all being based on donations right now. We have a lot of people that donate dog food, so we're able to just feed the dogs through donations. But we do have good volunteer staff that come in and walk the dogs, and other organizations that help support us financially when we have medical issues with dogs.
Any other things?
I visited.
Yeah, we're still trying to get
So
them
we have
another
31
dog.
dogs up for adoption. We have 60 children in foster homes. And
Everybody gets a child with a dog.
yeah, I was wondering about that. But we really should spend more time, it sounds like, in helping people. Take 6 months to be a foster parent, but I'm not sure we do 6 months of training to help parents be parents, right?
Yeah,
And I don't know how that applies to dogs, but you probably see that.
well, there can be some challenges when you adopt a dog if you haven't had one before. It's an adjustment. So
What are the biggest mistakes people make?
I think just patience, not giving the dogs time, getting impatient with how the dog's acting, especially when we adopt out puppies. We try to explain to people this is going to be quite the adjustment, and just kind of hang in there. It'll get better eventually, hopefully. So
Both of our families have been rescued puppies. It's like raising another child. Diaper forward.
That's the point, it's a commitment, it's not like a toy or an object you buy or something, neither are children.
yeah,
They're commitments and they take a lot of work
yeah,
and you have to be focused and committed to doing what needs to be done.
yeah. We try to reiterate to the people adopting, this is a big commitment. So
Mhm.
Well, thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
yep, thank you.
Okay, Jason,
We
Greg,
already have a couple items, for signature today. One, we have approved a satisfaction mortgage from the CHIP program for Ronald and Peggy Allison. These commissioners are, the CHIP program is an old grant program that the county and the city had that would do rehabs and repairs on individual homes. And then they had a period where every year the, in the sense of it was an unpaid lien would be on the house, it would go away. So once they're have met the time frame, we need to release that from the property. And so it's required for you to approve those and sign those. And then Penny will file those with the recorder's office to release the lien as a satisfaction of the mortgage.
so if I could have a motion,
I motion approved.
A second.
and all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
So that only requires Bill's signature.
Mhm.
And then we have to reappoint Melissa Body to what we just talked about, the Ohio Children's Trust Regional Council for Job and Family Services and Family and Children's First Council.
I motion to approve.
I second.
And all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And then we did have an item number 3 to add, Courtney from HR reached out to us last night and the PERF, the Public Employment Risk Reduction Program, requires these forms to be filled out for every workplace that the county has on, this is related if there was any work-related injuries or accidents. And so they have completed these for all the county locations, except like the health department and so forth, and Bill, you will need to sign every
Do we
single
need to
one of
make a
these.
motion
You
for
will,
that?
yep, you will, and then you'll have to sign all of them.
Yeah.
Okay,
The motion?
Yeah, motion,
Second.
and all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
you need that. And then, just a couple, county administrator items to give you capital updates. I just want to let you know, we were working on the floors over at Adult Probation House. That project is just about done. We had some issues with the old wood plank flooring that was in bad shape, so, that's Judge Wetzel's probation office, and so that is just about done. And then had a meeting with the architect last week relating to the project on the back entrance addition that we're putting on the lobby, I guess you would call it. That we're on February 4th, we're gonna bring in a company to actually camera all of the stormwater drains. We want to just make sure that everything is in good shape. We had some back there that were crushed and we had to replace. They want to get a good eye because of the way the stormwater is. There's no stormwater on Chestnut Street, it's all on High Street. And so the stormwater runs all the way down the side of our property here. And they just they want to check the elevation of that pipe, the size of that pipe and what condition it's in. So that'll all be taking place, I think on February 4th. Todd has that scheduled and I'll give you an update on that. I hope all of that's good, but that's coming in since we're getting close to starting that project probably in March or April. The architects want to lay eyes on that and make sure we're in good shape before that happens. And then the other item I have is, you remember from our budget, we have a budget stabilization fund that we were allowed to create under ORC 5705.13. And we currently have the balance $1,286,321 in that fund. The code allows us to have 5%. We talked a little bit about this during the budget. We can have 5% of prior year revenue in that fund. So that 1.2 million is based on what our revenue was in 2023. So now that 2024 is over, I ran those revenue numbers and we are allowed to put an additional $146,642 in that budget stabilization fund, which would get us up to the 5% allowed by code. So I would ask you if you would like me to proceed with doing that, and I'll take care of getting that all that ready. It would come before you next week that you would officially sign the transfer. But I'm asking for guidance if you would like me to proceed with preparing that document.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, and part of that stabilization fund is when people retire and leave and we have to come up with funds to be able to do that. Cause we currently don't have that anyplace. So without that fund, we'd have to take it out of current funding. So it's projecting into the future when someone would take vacation leave with them when they're retired, and we had to come up with monies for that.
And any of those that fund can be used for really anything. It's in the general fund. It's still in the general fund. It's just in a sub account within the general fund, or I guess I should say a sub fund within the general fund. And by resolution, you can just move that money back to the.
Move it back to the general fund.
Absolutely. Yep, if you need to, the code allows that. So you don't need to take a vote. I'll prepare the document. You will actually sign the resolution doing that next week. We'll do that Thursday.
Sounds
We'll
good.
prepare that. Okay.
And those monies can be moved to non-general items as well, if needed down the road.
That's correct. The general fund can transfer money to any fund, but the other funds can't transfer money anywhere. It has to stay in the fund in which it was created. That's correct. I think that's all I have. You do have bills and transfers. There is one transfer that you're gonna sign today. This was relating to a grant at the Adult Court Services. They had some grants that closed out at the end of 2025, and state was basically creating new grants. So the funding that was left in that grant has to be moved over, and that's what you're signing today, is to allow the court to transfer that from the old fund to the new fund. Okay, and then in that, you have your bills. And
And we don't need a motion for this.
no, because when you sign this, it will create a resolution. Yeah.
Okay.
And I think that's, you have anything
Yeah.
else for me?
Well, no, not for you. Barry, you want to talk a little bit about
Yeah, I,
the veterans?
visited, the Veterans Administration yesterday for their Board of Directors meeting. Very nice getting to see some of the guys that I hadn't seen for a long time over there. They are working on their budget, Jason, I guess. I'm gonna get with you on the new budget, from what I understand. It's kind of picked up on, maybe I'm correct.
Well, they've submitted it. It's. I mean, it's been appropriated based on when the general fund budget was adopted.
Other than that, it was just more of a learning, paying attention, meeting for me. I mean, I don't have any input. I'm just a veteran and a commissioner that was attending to gain knowledge. But it went well. I told them I'd be there once a month. I meet twice a month, and I'm gonna attend one Wednesday a month just to, if I can advise or they can advise me, maybe we can, work mano a mano on some things. So.
You want to talk about the spelling bee?
Oh, no, we do that next time. We got a picture with the young ladies that won, but we did not get their names, so we need to know that.
And I did request Taylor to
make
send
sure.
that to us.
Great, and I did send the pictures to Andrew of the winners and,
He may
see,
have to wait until we get names.
it was hard to separate being a mom and grandma from being a judge because you want them all to win, but you can't.
I was gonna say, I went home and told my wife that there was a couple moments where I was like, oh, geez.
I know,
it's not
and
much fun.
your mouth almost wants to spell it, you're like, no, I can't help you. Anyway, it was wonderful, it was delightful, and I attended the Area Development Foundation Executive Board, and they're preparing for their upcoming board meeting. Got to know the people there, and they just went over items that they want to cover at their board meeting in the future. And obviously, I wouldn't want to share anything from the board meeting because that's where their board meeting, so anyway, but it was nice to be there, and it's a beautiful facility, and good work.
And then yesterday, we had a board of revisions meeting. In that meeting, it typically is when a piece of property or properties are delinquent. And we had to take those to a sheriff's sale, and there was one Apple Valley lot that was brought to the board of revisions for it to go to the sheriff's sale. And I know that that typically we will meet once a month. And from what I can see in February, there'll be 6 of those parcels that will, be, unless people pay the taxes, will be going into that route too.
Do they only have to go one time, go to the sheriff's sale?
Now, they can go a couple times, but typically if someone doesn't buy it,
That's the only time it goes to another one if somebody doesn't buy it.
yes.
Okay.
And if someone's interested in that, do they go to the sheriff's site to find out about this auction?
I believe that's where they go. It's an online auction. Used to be that they'd have to go back there,
Yeah.
board steps.
Used to go to the steps back there.
Yeah, and do that. That's all I have. If you. We will stay adjourned then. We need to, next week we won't meet on Tuesday because it's after the holiday. So Thursday will be our next regular session. We stand.
We need to bring boots, winter coats, earmuffs or anything for next Thursday.
Yeah, next
Or
Thursday,
spelling book.
next Thursday, I think we'll finish the tour of the building and then you have your orientation at 1 o'clock. It's changed to 1, Barry. On
Today?
Tuesday, next
Next
Thursday at 1. Next Thursday at 1.
Okay.
So that's all. And then the following week, I think we'll get out to some offsite tours and that kind of stuff. We've got a list of places to go, so we'll start that the following weekend. Weather permitting.
Very good. So we need a motion to adjourn?
Yeah.
A motion to adjourn.
Second.
We stand adjourned then. Thank you.